Rexai's finally getting a big mid scope. They're changing almost like every single ability on Rexai. They are changing in some way, shape, or form. And a lot of people are saying, especially I see on the Rexai Reddit subreddit, a lot of them are talking about the damage. And keep in mind, this is coming from a guy that mostly plays Rek'Sai top. Okay, so to me, like, all this move speed, like extra is pretty cool. All these tunnels is pretty cool, but it doesn't impact top as much. But I'm still very, very happy about all of this. I'm personally happy, even as a top laner for Rek'Sai, because even with the minion, uh, like cutting basically the Fury in half, right? So I don't get as much healing, but the healing gets increased so much. They've upped it so much. So I think Rek'Sai top is going to be just fine. And for Rek'Sai jungle, like her damage early is cut down a little bit, but especially late it's cut down a lot. But I think that's okay for the character. I think it's okay to have, you know, you help early, you get your team ahead, you get yourself ahead, and then if the game goes too long, you're still a really good like champion to go in because you're faster now. Overall, your champion is faster, and your tunnels are faster. So you get to go in easier, to engage easier. People can't sidestep your tunnels as easily. And now you have a multi-man knockup. People are talking about, oh, the R does no damage. Okay, fuck it. Use the Q and then R and then engage like that. Because you're still gonna be a really good engaged champion with multiple knockups. If you can find that angle, you will be invaluable to your team. I'm I'm really happy about the healing. And a lot of people are thinking about, oh, the minions, oh, you get half fury from minions, so the healing isn't as good. Like, okay, like, yeah, I get it, but half fury from minions, but double the healing, right? You'll definitely feel the healing later in the game, which is nice. And a lot of times you'll be stacking it up on random things, not just minions, but also champions as well. So you're gonna definitely feel the heal, okay? But also, a lot of times in top, you're skirmishing with the enemy when you poke out a Q, when you knock up them up with the wave, right? Because now you can knock up the whole wave with the enemy champion. It'll be so easy just to press W, everyone's knocked up, and you get the normal amount of fury from enemy champions, right? So it won't be hard to heal off of them per se. Like, oh, I Q and then W and then auto then Q. Like I do that all the time, right? Get max fury super quick, and a lot of times a lot of champions can't respond to that. Like a lot of characters cannot respond to uh Q knockup auto Q, right? So the healing will still be really good because there's still potential for a lot of healing, even if the minions only give you half. There's still the potential for very frequent, like more potent heals, right? But when I play Rek'Sai top, I don't have to worry as much about, oh, if I don't get ahead, if I don't make sure that I stomp this guy, there's a good chance I'm gonna get outscaled and there's not shit I can do. Like that kind of sucks. Like I know I'm playing a non-optimal way to play Rek'Sai. I know I am. And like that's on me, right? I put my team behind a lot because of that. Not every game, but maybe like 20% of the time, like genuinely, um since my champ can't contest the other champion, there's a lot of times where like I actually fuck over my team. And so this becomes a situation where, hey, I can compete not maybe as the best bruiser because they've slashed so much of my damage, especially late game, but I can compete as a tank and help out my team. So I think going forward, instead of taking ignite every game and trying to contest enemy champions so much in lane, I'm gonna start running TP and I'm gonna start using my tunnels because they're gonna be a really low cooldown. I'm gonna be able to use them to get back to lane super fast and capitalize on really good macro timings because of the tunnels and the TP. Because you're gonna have a unique advantage of getting around the map super fast, which I think will be a really nice bonus. A lot of kill pressure in lane will be worse because one of the changes, right? One of the changes is when Rexai knocks up right now, right? They get slowed for a brief moment of time. I think it's like 0.5 seconds or something like that. They get slowed, right? So your ability to 1v1 people is really strong when you can, Q W auto Q, and once they land on the ground, they're slowed and they have a hard time, you know, fighting back towards you if you can back away. You could do a really quick combo and then back away. They're taking that slow way because there's a multiple knockup now. So the 1v1 potential is going to be a little bit harder every time you do that short burst combo. But there are so many big, like, I would say utility, I guess, upgrades to the champion, right? Your tunnels are 10 seconds lower cooldown, rank 1, which is huge. 26 to 16, okay? And the reuse is from 6 to 2. That's also really big. So the tunnels themselves are really strong because not only can you use them more frequently, you can use, especially early game, you can reuse them early game more frequently, and they're also faster. Okay. Now, unburrowed E, so the bite is not as strong. It had a lot of damage slash from it, which I think is okay because the E does less damage, and the burrowed Q and the R do less damage. But I think with all the changes they're giving us, I think that's okay. I think we just spec more into tank and more into bruiser and just completely avoid like building straight damage because we don't have high ratios anymore. Like not like other champions. We have more conservative ratios now, but we have so much more utility just baked into our kit. And I think that's a great thing because oh, you know, they release 14.4 and Rexai gets updated and the champs win rate went down. You know, people aren't happy with it because the damage is too low, you know. But you have all these other things that help you still win the game. So there's still potential for you to show that you're a good Rexai player without just nuking somebody. Let's say you get ahead and you're playing the new Rexai. Now you have so many more tools at your disposal because you played well early and you got yourself ahead. You have all these other things to help you basically retain your lead, in my opinion. You have you don't need to build Stridebreaker anymore. You don't need to build attack speed anymore, even if it feels clunky, because you have the Q attack speed, right? Oh, you have all this more healing. Oh, you have all this more move speed. Oh, you more tunnels. Oh, you know, more vision on your burrow form. Multiple W knockup. Like so many different little things that all add up to such a big degree, especially the W. That's the biggest one. But all these things are either like small or like medium sized buffs, and the W is the biggest buff, and then they just took away a bunch of damage from scalings. I think that's completely fine because fundamentally, like at a core baseline, Rexai will be more healthy for the game overall, I think, and will be uh show the difference between a good and a bad Rexai more. Which obviously I'm biased because I play so much Rexai. I want to be able to show that I'm better at Rexai than whoever else, right? Like, oh, Joe Schmo picks up Rexai. I want to be able to show that I can be better at Rexai than him. Obviously, I'm biased in that regard, but I should be. Like, if someone plays Zed, Yasuo, Akali, Lee Sin, Italy, fucking like Victor or Syndra or like anything, like literally anything. There's a lot of times where it's just like, oh, he's just like the new guy versus the, you know, let's say 500 game guy. There's a giant gap, right? Even with more simple champions, like you could even say something like an Alistar or something. There's still a big gap. And Rek'Sai was one of those champs where like leaned more towards like, oh, you know her damage more, you know how her vision works more, and you understand her tunnels. That's kind of it. Like there was nothing cool about it. And a lot of times there was a lot of times where like it felt like, oh, the enemy can't do anything about me because I just burst them, they just lose. It's not like, oh, like I can outplay them or I can do a really big team fight. For top lane Rek'Sai, these changes are nice, but they're not as big as jungle Rek'Sai. So jungle Rek'Sai has a lot more. I think the move speed and the tunnels are the biggest thing to me, and the Q attack speed is really like I love that they did that. I love that they did the Q attack speed. It's 45%. So because it synergizes with the Q itself, right? So when you press Q, you have to auto 3 times, and that takes a moment. But as soon as you auto 3 times, you get the Q on cooldown. And so like later into the game, when your Q's on like a 2 second cooldown, you Q W auto Q, right? So you get all your things out, and then you bite, and then by the time maybe like one more auto after that, by the time the bite and then the auto, you can Q again. And it's so fast because of the attack speed. Not only do you get to activate the cooldown of the Q, you also get to get out your damage super fast, which obviously is nice. But the faster you can consume the Q, the faster that you can start a new Q, right? And since it's such a low cooldown, you can get it into combos really fast. And so you won't need like Halo Blades. I don't think I'm ever gonna run that again on Rexai. Like genuinely. Because not only am I not building damage, there's no point in building damage. Like straight lethality is what I mean by that. Um, Conquer, like you're gonna be wanting to do like straight fights. You're gonna want to commit to fights for a long time, or you're gonna want to stack up your Conquer or whatever until you get a little too low or you don't feel comfortable in the situation. You E away and then you heal up a bunch of health because of your new passive. You know, max max level 20%, 20 fucking percent. That's a lot. Like, damn, dude. You could go in, like, get your little Conqueror healing. If you have Spirit Visage, that'd be even more. And, like, you heal a bunch of your HP, and then you could be almost ready to go back in. Or you could find a different angle where you will be able to go back in. That's huge. Another thing, lethality Rexai won't be a thing anymore. Because not only, obviously, the damage, but the W and the burrowed Q, so the knock up and the burrowed Q, are both magic damage now. So, since obviously that doesn't scale with lethality, you're not going to be able to build lethality to a reasonable degree anymore. So, like, I don't think there's any reasonable way, in my opinion, to not build Rexai in a bruiser way. Like, I think she has to be a bruiser for her to function now. And, like, that kind of sucks that we're not a bruiser, but a bruiser and a tank. Those are your options, basically, now. And it kind of sucks that you're pigeonholed into that. But I think that's like I think you would have to make Rek'Sai a completely different champion if you wanted her to function as a assassin to a reasonable degree, in my opinion. Because I won't play lethality Rek'Sai like genuinely, like seriously, I will not play her. Like unless I'm hanging out with my friends and I'm doing some dumb shit or whatever, or like oh I'm gonna build lethality and I'm gonna build fucking Edge of Night and then Sterex and then Spirit Visage and all this stuff. So like I'm building one lethality item. I'm not building straight lethality anymore. I don't do that at all anymore. The only reason I was doing that is because Prowler's Club was so strong. But like think about it. Like if you're the enemy, how the fuck are you gonna respond to a Prowler's Claw unless you have like a ZR or you have a Zonia's or if you know you can't even flash it if it the Prowlers has started. That's crazy. So I'm like the counterplay for that is very minimal. So I'm glad they got rid of that. And Rexai being an assassin without prowlers was too clunky for me. I hate that. I hate the feeling of like, oh, you have to pressure super early. I'm talking about jungle right now. You have to pressure super early and then you have to, you know, basically suppress the enemy, which I know is very common for junglers, especially like assassin junglers for early game. But it's like she just fell off a fucking cliff. Like, oh, if you're Lee Sin, you could still do a bunch of things once it hits 25, 30 minutes. But if you're lethality Rexai, or even sometimes bruiser Rexai, there's not shit you can do. You just kind of, like, are there. Like, you kind of failed. If you're 30 minutes into the game as a lethality or even lethality slash bruiser Rexai, you failed, like, your job. Failed it. And that shit feels so bad. Like it does not feel good. And so I'm glad that they're skewing it where, oh yeah, you still have some of like majority of your damage early, right? But we're taking away damage later into the game, so you can have utility for your team later into the game. I think that transition is great. I think that's genius. I love that, and I'm glad that they're doing that. I'm really happy with what they're doing here. So for top lane specifically, let's see. So for top lane specifically, I think the things that are gonna be the most notable, okay? The move speed coming back, the uh the move speed getting added to your base. So instead of 335, it's 340 now. That's cool and that's nice. And I don't know how I don't know if I'm gonna put points into W, like if I'm genuinely gonna start doing that for the movement speed, because that actually sometimes it does make a pretty big difference in lane, and sometimes it doesn't. When you're able to dodge skill shots. So I think in ranged matchups, I might actually start leveling up like 1 or 2 points into W so I can start getting some of that move speed. Because I think it goes from like 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, right? So if I put in 2 points into W, let's say instead of maxing out tunnel, now when I'm burrowed, I have 15 plus the extra base 5, right? So now I have plus 20 move speed. That's pretty fucking fast. And I think that might help into range matchups, but I really need to see and get a feel for it before I actually do it. I don't know yet, but I'm going to experiment with that. The attack speed is going to be really big because not only will you be able to clear minions faster, your extended fights will be better because you can get off your Qs faster, so you can get your Qs up more frequently. So your extended fights will be super strong. Not super strong, but they'll be stronger in that singular regard. But with other regards, it will be weaker. With the Q burrowed, the damage is going down a bit, like scaling wise, but it's turning to magic damage, which is good in the sense like, oh, if they're building armor, then oh, my Q still does magic damage, so that's gonna hurt them, and they're not building against that, so it'll still do a little bit of damage. But overall, like if we're talking baseline MR, baseline armor, like it's not much. It's not much damage because they took away some of the scaling. Um, the no slow on W, so the unburrow, there's no slow now. That's gonna make 1v1s kind of hard. Sometimes. It really depends on the matchup, but sometimes I was actually really big, where I was able to get a combo off and they weren't able to respond in a way. Like, oh, I don't know. I can't really think of a good example right now, but like let's say a Jax has like he jumps on me, right? I could literally just W if he doesn't have Counter Strike, and he gets knocked up, and while I'm walking away, he gets slowed, and so he can't do anything. So there are times where you can use little short intervals where they baseline move speed, they would be able to catch up to you, but since the slow was in effect, they couldn't do anything, and that really fucks them over sometimes. So in very like critical situations, in certain situations, that'll be annoying, but I think that's totally manageable. Um, so the E cooldown is going from like 12 seconds to 10, but its damage is being reduced a lot because it's not true damage anymore. I think it's like max health physical damage now, and it's like a lower percentage, which I think is okay, but it's not going to be as strong into tanks, which kind of sucks. But I think it'll be all right. Um, like there's not really much I can say here. It's just like, oh, it's less damage, and tanks are going to be a little bit better now. But I really genuinely don't think they will be better into Rexai now, just because she lost the true damage on it. Because with the Q attack speed, I think that kind of makes up for it. If you can stay in an extended trade with tanks, because obviously they're fucking tanks, they want to stay in an extended trade, then the attack speed will be really nice, and the true damage. I think it will even out. And besides, the cooldown is a little bit lower, right? So you can use it a little bit more frequently. Um, the tunnel. So this is actually really big. This is actually really big into very specific matchups. Like like two champions that I'm thinking of right now, Gnar and Quinn, right? Gnar, his hop is a lower cooldown than your tunnel. So unless he throws his hop, like he just uses it, you cannot touch him. Or if he reacts too slow to your tunnel, which I don't know how, because the tunnel's slow as fuck. Like right now it's really, really slow, right? So if he sees you doing your little dash and he doesn't jump, then that's on him. But like a Gnar that's good and actually responds to like, hey, this guy's tunneling at me, I gotta get out before he kills me. He ease away, right? Then he gets I think he gets an attack speed from that. Pretty sure. So he ease away, and now you're vulnerable. Can't do anything. And so now he starts auto attacking you, and he starts getting move speed from his passive. And there's not a thing you can do unless you have flash or swifty boots or an extra tool to help you out. Baseline, you cannot get on top of him no matter what you do. Now, if you have an extra tool, like, oh, I brought Ignite and Nimbus Cloak, and now I can get on top of him. Like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, and that's a reasonable thing to do in Tanar, in my opinion. But this gives you the option of being able to get on champs like Gnar and Quinn, and champs that have really good like neutralizing tools to stop you from doing anything, and your cooldowns are just way too long. I'm talking about the tunnel cooldown. Like the actual cooldown of the tunnel itself is going from 26 to 16. Rank 1, which is a 10-second difference, right? That's huge. So in a lot of range matchups, it won't be as devastating when they can just poke you down. You have to wait. Oh, okay. I have to wait another 20 to 25 seconds to go in again, because that's how long you would genuinely have to wait. So I think that's really big as well, but only into range and like matchups where you have to engage on top of them. And this is also like, the tunnels are faster, so obviously that will help in its own regard. So those two things combined will make range matchups easier. The reuse is going from 10 to 2, or sorry, from 10 to 2 to 6 to 2, which is cool. Um, I mean, that's nice overall. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference top lane. There are some situations where you tunnel in and then the enemy, like you do a combo and then the enemy backs away and then you back away and you start hitting the wave, and while you're hitting the wave they want to wait on top of your tunnel and destroy it. And like, okay, Like a lot of times it'll be like 2 or 3 seconds until you can use the tunnel, like you reuse the tunnel again. And so in situations specifically like that, yeah, it'll help. A lot of these are very like niche situations for top lane, but just like general like, oh, this is really nice for jungle. And that's one of them. And the last thing I want to talk about is the percentage on the ultimate is down a lot. And that does feel bad, but honestly, that's it's I think it's a worthy price to pay. If they really need to up the damage later, that's okay. Okay. Like I think early game it'll still deal okay damage, but once you start building to tankiness and it relies on that AD scaling, it's not gonna feel good. Um, so there's not really much I can say about that one, especially since they're pushing you towards a tankier build, and since it scales off a bonus AD, I mean it's just like a recipe for no damage. So, but overall, I'm really happy with what they're doing here. Um, I really hope this is the last like major change they do to her, like for a long time. And I hope that they just, tune up the numbers, make it refined, and figure out the final places they want to put her. Because they're doing a giant shove, like they're shoving her into a spot now, and now they just need to shove her a little bit into that right spot that they want her to be in once they figure out where she lands here. And so I'm glad that they're still paying attention to the champ. I was looking at I was listening to I was working, right? And I was listening to Freak talking about Rexai in the 14.4 update. And I didn't even know this, but he said that Rexai was the second lowest played champion in the game, behind like in front of fucking Skarner, dude. That's crazy. Like Skarner is the only champion that people want to play less than Rexai right now. Like out of the 160 or whatever the hell champions, she's one of like the least played champions. Like she's the bottom of the fucking barrel, which is fucking sad. But um, I think it's good that they're taking her into consideration. I'm glad that they are, and I'm glad that they're taking a more like they want to go a more utility route, especially towards the later end of the game, because I think that is the wisest choice they could have picked. And once they figure out the numbers, I think I'll be just fine with the champ. I mean, I love playing this champ, and I play this champ so fucking much that like I'd be okay with them. Like I'd be okay with Rexai right now, frankly. But I am more excited about the new iteration of Rexai that they're gonna come out with. So I'm okay with them doing this. These changes aren't final, so a lot of these things could be subject to change. So we'll just see how it lands. But as of right now, I'm assuming that's like, let's say 90% of the changes are what they've given us right now. So I'm just gonna throw this out there and see what you guys think. So I'll see y'all.